Today marks the first anniversary of Hamas's attack on Israel's occupying forces in Gaza, where 1,200 people were killed and 250 were taken hostage. Today is also the name of an early morning news programme on BBC Radio. Rather than reporting on the events in a balanced and unbiased fashion, the publicly funded broadcaster decided to invite this maniac and serial liar onto the show to spread propaganda unchallenged. Ambassador Tzipi Hotovely was allowed to repeat long-debunked myths about the events of October 7th last year, as well as being allowed to paint the terrorist state of Israel as the victims in this situation, when it's clear to anyone with two brain cells to rub together that they're the oppressive occupying force, something that international bodies like the UN and ICC now fully recognise, but the BBC don't think is worth mentioning to its listeners. Rather than confront her on her deception, she was allowed to speak freely as the lies piled up. I'll get onto that in just a second, but I'll quickly show you how the news was reported just a few moments before the interview. The report quoted Prime Minister Keir Starmer desperately trying to conflate Israel with Judaism in a shockingly open display of pro-Zionist rhetoric that's as far removed from the truth as Keith is from popularity. Let's see what's happening.
There were also strikes on southern Lebanon and Bekaa in the east. Sir Keir Starmer has said Britain must unequivocally stand with the Jewish community and unite as a country. He said what happened on the 7th of October last year was the darkest day in Jewish history since the Holocaust. Sir Keir also reiterated his call for ceasefires in Gaza and Lebanon.
Well, I'll tell you what, Keith, I will stand with the Jewish community because the vast majority of Jews actually condemn Israel for their actions and are horrified at what far-right Zionists are doing in Palestine and the wider Middle East. There's always a strong presence in Jewish blocs on ceasefire marches, and we saw this again over the weekend with hundreds of thousands of people taking to the streets of London once again. Trying to conflate a peaceful religion with an aggressive maniacal state is pathetic, and this statement reeks of scripted lobbyist garbage that Benjamin Netanyahu might as well have personally written himself. And if you do want a ceasefire, then maybe, I don't know, stop selling Israel weapons to fire with, you massive flannel. On to the interview with Israeli Ambassador Tzipi Hotovely now. For those of you who are in possession of the actual facts of the matter of Gaza's plight, strap yourselves in. This clip comes with a pretty big trigger warning.
Let us talk to Tzipi Hotovely, who is Israel's ambassador to the UK and is on the line now. Good morning to you, Ambassador.
Good morning, Justin.
We were just hearing from Lise Doucette, our correspondent, in some of the affected places in southern Israel just a few moments ago. Just wonder, listening to her and listening to her report of the impact, not just on those places, but on individuals who've now moved away into the rest of Israel, whether the outside world properly understands the impact of what happened on that day on the nation.
Well, I can tell you that Israel is a different place since the 7th of October. It was a watershed moment in the country's history. I think people are still under the big trauma and the shock of the barbaric attack of Hamas.
I think the real trauma and shock is the 42,000 people who've been confirmed killed in Gaza over the last year, as well as the disproportionate number of women and children, as Israel continues to commit war crimes daily.
Our hearts are still bleeding for the fact 101 hostages are still in Gaza, 100 I should say. And I think for the world, they just want to pass on, but we cannot pass on because we need to remember why this thing happened. This thing happened because we were surrounded by this ring of fire created by Iran that wanted to create proxies that can attack Israel simultaneously.
It's actually Israel who are the proxy in this situation at the behest of the United States. And this happened because Israel are illegally occupying Gaza and the West Bank.
From the north, from Hezbollah, from the east, from the south, from Hamas. And this plan was shattered at the 7th of October because Israel is fighting back and we are changing the Middle East. We're changing the Middle East. We're making the Middle East a better place without those radical terror groups.
Israel are the terrorist state here and they've razed Palestine to the ground. She's trying to play the victim, but whether she wants to talk about Iran, Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria or Yemen, Israel fired first in every case.
What the British government is saying, and Keir Starmer himself is saying, is that there is enormous support for Israel and for Jews around the world, and obviously in Britain. and a sense of fellow feeling and a sense of empathy, but there should be a ceasefire in Gaza, a ceasefire in Lebanon.
There is not enormous support for Israel in the UK. In fact, here's Zara Sultana to remind you of the actual statistics about what people think.
67% of the British public think Israel has committed war crimes, 56% support blocking all arms sales to Israel, and 84% Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested if he comes to the UK.
Well, I don't know how a ceasefire takes us forward to a place where Israelis can live safely. We are in a point today that after 11 months of negotiation, of giving a chance to diplomacy in the northern border, Hezbollah was firing non-stop since October the 8th on Israeli cities. I don't understand what type of solution is being offered by people that are offering ceasefire at the moment. Our hostages are still in Gaza. How ceasefire will bring them back when we're dealing with a terror organization?
And that's further proof, if anyone needed, that Israel have got no interest in a ceasefire whatsoever. They've destroyed Palestine, and now they want to do the same to countries like Lebanon and beyond.
So as much as we all want to see peace, we all want to live in a normal life. Believe me, my brother was fighting now for 10 months in Gaza, and so many Israelis packed their army bag just a few days ago to fight in the Lebanon border. Everyone prefers to have peaceful life, but we're doing it because it's essential to bring safety back to our borders. So we are in a situation where Hezbollah built such a big infrastructure. They wanted to create another 7th of October.
Stop.
The big plan of Hezbollah was to occupy the Galilee, the northern part of Israel, with the same type of barbaric attack we've seen from Hamas. So Israel cannot afford another 7th of October.
Please stop her.
Definitely not. We're talking today when we remember what's the cost of ignoring a genocidal ideology.
Please interrupt this absolute bullshit.
Terror organization.
I suppose the issue there is you say you need to bring safety back. And what the British government and other governments around the world might say, and perhaps the Americans behind the scenes, is that this is not the way to do that. And you've got the United Nations refugee chief saying yesterday that international law has been violated by Israel in Lebanon. You're killing civilians, and obviously many, many civilians in Gaza have also died, that actually even friends of Israel are suggesting to you that these things are counterproductive.
Well, at least he's finally acknowledged the fact that international bodies have declared Israel's actions as illegal, as well as the fact that them attacking 7 different countries simultaneously doesn't exactly reek of ceasefire or de-escalation, does it?
I'm sometimes asking myself what they would have done if their country was under this type of barbaric attack. Just a few days ago, we had 180 missiles coming from Iran and firing and targeting civilians. Israel never targets civilians. We actually take so many precautions to make sure that those civilians will be out of harm. We do our best to make sure that those civilians will flee from the area of the war zone.
That is one big pile of shit.
Israel, as we well know by now, have been specifically targeting civilians and also attacking so-called safe zones, where thousands of people have been killed despite being told to move there to stay out of harm's way.
When our enemies are doing exactly the opposite. They're targeting innocent civilians. They killed 12 children in a football game. Can you imagine your country just gives 12 children to be murdered in a football game, and people will just say, well, I think the best thing will be to have a ceasefire now, after they killed 12 children and dozens of civilians. I think no other country would have given itself this advice that Israel is being given. We need security, we need safety, we need our people to be safe in their homes, and not just after 7th of October that people were exposed to the idea that terrorists will walk into their living room and will murder children in their beds, in their pajamas.
But then
this is something that no country can tolerate. Missiles on main cities is something no country can tolerate.
But if you can't tolerate it,
would have been fired on London, Keir Starmer wouldn't have said ceasefire.
the logic of what you're saying is regime change in Iran, isn't it?
I think obviously the Iranian people need to say what they want, what type of regime they want. But we are calling to the Iranian people we have nothing against Iranians when it comes to the people, but we definitely believe that this regime is the most dangerous thing to the world, not just to Israel. We believe that this is a regime that is against any liberal value that we both share, that we all believe in. This is the same regime that killed Mahsa Amini and executed her and executed women. This is the same regime that is against every basic human right value. So we need to make sure that this regime won't have the ability to attack Israel or any other Western country. And Israel will make Iran to pay the price for its brutal attack a few days ago, and that's the 14th of April.
Just a short time ago, Israel was saying that their only demands were to disable Hamas and have the hostages returned. Now they've got their eyes on overthrowing the leaders in Iran. It just goes to prove that you can never believe a single word that comes out of an Israeli ambassador's mouth.
But there's a difference, isn't there, between paying the price and ensuring that the country is so damaged that it can't do future damage in the future. And that obviously means its nuclear installations, potentially, and its oil installations. Is a mass attack on Iran that many would see as an escalation and a hugely dangerous one. Are you saying that that is a place that Israel is currently thinking of being?
I want to say who's escalating here. It's Iran who's escalating. It's not Israel. Israel is protecting its people. When Iran sends 300 UAVs and missiles to Israeli people, and just a few days ago, 180 missiles, it's Iran that is escalating. This is unprovoked attacks on a sovereign country.
Unprovoked? Unprovoked? Are you absolutely insane?
And if you had even one rocket being fired on London, I'm sure the response would have been very severe. And this is why the world is supporting Israel when we are saying Iran needs to pay the price. So we will do whatever it takes to dismantle this threat. And this threat has been something that we are aware of for many years. This is why Israel had a shadow war with Iran, as you know. And we, together with the world, believe that the best way to address this issue is to make sure that more sanctions will be imposed and that the Iranian regime will be isolated and the IRGC must be proscribed. So we call the international community, if you want to see de-escalation, help us by isolating Iran, by making sure that the regime will pay the price, by more sanctions. This is what we're calling today to the world to do if you want to see this war de-escalate.
Well, there have been calls for sanctions, yeah. On Israel, you far-right maniac.
Tzipi Hotovely, Israel's ambassador to the UK. Thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Justin Webb, for letting her get through that absolute litany, as well as failing to put anything to her about the untold thousands of hostages currently being held in Israel and the 76-year occupation that Palestine has been under. That was a classic example of Zionist rhetoric, basically accusing the other side of the things that you are, in actual fact, guilty of yourself. Their dishonesty knows no bounds, and it's a shame to see them getting away with it unchallenged on a mainstream platform such as the BBC. But let me know what you thought about that interview in the comments, as well as whether Justin Webb should have done more to challenge the Israeli ambassador. Thanks so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe and thumbs up buttons to help us out on the algorithm. You can now join the channel with a membership for just 99p with some great perks for you to enjoy, including exclusive content and early viewings, plus lots more. And you get to join the list of awesome people who support the channel that you can see on your screen right now. Hit the join button or follow the links in the channel description. If you'd like to make a one-off contribution, then please hit super thanks on the video or follow the link to our Buy Me a Coffee page, where you can help to show solidarity and support the channel for just the price of a tasty hot beverage. All contributions are greatly appreciated. Thanks again everyone. My left eye, be seeing you soon.